gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to Daddy's Issues, one of the top 5,000 shows on earth, according to a study that I just made up. You're going to hear Mr. Teach in the background periodically. He's got a job to do. He takes it very seriously. He patrols the neighborhood from that window. This is my bro, Zach. Zach and I met some years ago. We started training together at our local gym, started doing some Krav Maga together. I've learned a whole lot from Zach about how to move my body, how to address injuries, how to train. So welcome to the show, Zach.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here, man. So one of the topics I want to get into early on is it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'll often hear guys in particular say, I don't need to go to therapy because the gym is my therapy, right? My take on that is the gym is therapeutic. It's good for us, puts us in a good headspace. It doesn't always address mental health issues, but it is something that's good. We should be doing it. How do you feel about that?
The gym rat wants to say, yeah.
Yeah.
The pragmatist says no. I think that everyone should be in therapy no matter what. It doesn't mean that you have issues. It means that you can be better. And if you're somebody who has the mindset of, oh, I'm going to go train and put myself through this hell, right, to get better physically, why wouldn't you want to be better mentally? And I think our mental health is going to play a huge proponent in the success of our training. I think that people on the outside look at, whether it's bodybuilding or all these other different outposts of training as kind of like a lunk type idea, or what pick everything's up. But the people who train and who have a greater understanding of all the parts of it, right? The physiological portions of it, the biochemistry and all the other components, realize that this is the strongest muscle.
Yeah.
And whether you're speaking biologically, right? There's this awesome book by Dr. What's his name? Lipton, PhD, and it's called The Belief of Biology. And he actually talks about the ability for us to change ourselves at the cellular level just based off of how we think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that, I don't know. I'm sure that most people would be like, oh, he looks like somebody who just want to work out all the time, which I do. Yeah. I do. It's my favorite thing to do.
Absolutely.
But I also understand the value of a multifaceted approach. And I think that if you have the availability, I understand not everybody is, capable of getting to a mental health professional, whether it's time constraints or our healthcare in this country. It's difficult, but it would be more beneficial if you could look at this in multiple avenues. And yes, if you are improving yourself, mind, body, and spirit at the gym, then all the better for it. But if you can fine tune each part of that, right? Oh, can I get something from this biochemist? Ooh, can I get something from this psychologist? Ooh, what does this neurophysiologist have to say? That's me. I'm obsessed with learning. And I think that there's a big difference of like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a competitive athlete, or I'm doing this because I love it. And I do it because I love it, right? I don't have any competitive aspirations anymore. I'm past that point. And I think the way I move now and the way I think and train is representative of that change in me. But more than anything is now I'm centered around this idea of, okay, not to steal Jordan Peterson's thing, but how am I 1% better every day? And that doesn't mean I can't train every day. So that means, oh, okay, I'm not going to get physically better every day. But and even if you just reduce it into like, okay, I want to be better at this thing. And we'll say, well, it's, I want to be a better bodybuilder. Well, you have to take rest days, right? We know that you have to. You don't grow in the gym. You break down muscle in the gym. But that doesn't mean you have to be lazy that day. So, all right, I'm going to go listen to what this, what does Andrew Huberman have to say about training? Oh, what does Tim Ferriss have to say about mental mindsets? Ooh, I saw this really cool neurophysicist, like Louisa Nicola, talking about how bodybuilding and muscle and resistance training actually helps combat Alzheimer's.
Oh, God, yeah.
So, yes, I want to know everything, everything I can learn. And that's like my new obsession.
And I love that because it's like, we often partition things, it's like mental health is here, physical health is here, spiritual wellness is over here. But man, we're one unit. We can't just pretend like anymore. Those things are just separate, uninvolved things that aren't intertwined. And I think for me too, it's, and we came into the gym in different ways, you through bodybuilding, me through combat sports, but we learned a lot, kind of trying to integrate those things and about movement and how they kind of fit together. And one of the things I loved about training with you is, when you learn new things, you develop new neurological pathways, you develop new synapses. Absolutely. So that's been kick ass, you spotted some injuries in me, from surgeries that I just wasn't even seeing, and it really kind of changed the way I dialed into that. That impacted my mental health because I'm like, oh wait, I can move this thing, I can get this thing engaged again. So yeah, I think it's very much, it's one big picture, that we have to integrate. So I love that line of thinking. You mentioned a neurologist, Laura.
Oh, Louise Nicola?
Louise Nicola.
Yeah, she was just on Sean Ryan. Brilliant lady. She was actually like going to be a triathlete in the Olympics. She gets hit by a car. And I mean, I don't know if everyone's like you and I, but I don't have the ability not to be 100%.
Yeah.
So like last year, I took some time off and I was like, oh, I'm going to stop bodybuilding and stop training. I'm going to start this, business on the side. Well, everything became the business.
Right. Yeah.
And my wife's like, I thought this was going to be better. I said, no. That's not me. I'm not toe in the water. I'm dive head first. So that's a weakness too, though, right?
Sure.
So I had to realize that in myself. Now, what I can say about that, though, is that as I kind of come along in life, I realize that it's not necessarily the physical output, it's the mental output that I have to have. And the gym was just an easy way to express exhaustion, right? I trained so much this week that I am so mentally exhausted, my brain's not going to function.
Right.
Now I'm like, okay, I realize that myself. So, okay, I'm always going to be 100%, but now it's 30% to the gym and 70% to learning. Like, I am obsessed. Like, I'll get up at 7 a.m. on my day off to start watching podcasts and reading. I'm literally, and my weakness is trying to think about too many things at once, right? So now I'm starting to realize about myself, like, okay, how do I limit myself to making sure I'm getting the best composition towards this one thing at a time?
Where do you put your energy?
That's it, man. And like, I still, understanding that weakness, now I'm better at managing it. So like, I know I'm pretty good at 20 to 30 minute spurts. Like, I can hammer for 20 to 30 minute spurts. And actually, that's not kind of a foreign thing to just me. A lot of experts say that that's how humans learn the best.
Oh,
like,
God, yeah.
Chunks, right? Chunking it off. Because if you try to do like an 8-hour run, well, there's reasons that these college kids are on Adderall and stuff and they're cramming because you just don't have that mental capacity to keep going that long. Finding ways to do self resets and doing some, what's the word I want to look for? Like self-healing and during the day. Sometimes where you can just click that brain off, which is actually a really cool thing because say I'm watching or reading something and I'm like, all right, my 20-minute, 30-minute block is up. I'm going to go take a walk. Well, during that 20 to 30-minute walk, you're not just, brain mush wandering like a zombie. You're thinking about what you learned. Now you're developing, oh, this is what I read and this is what I'm interpreting from it. And I don't know who said it, but pseudo learning and learning are two different things.
Yeah.
And everyone says that if you're not reading primarily books, you're not actually learning because it's not what other people say. It's your adaptation to what you learn and how you apply it.
Right.
So I've been using that. Instead of doing cardio at the gym, I take 4 10-minute walks every day. No headphones, no technology,
Right.
no sunglasses. I told you about that Andrew Huberman I watched. Amazing. But he talks about and Sean asked him from his Patreon account, what's something that we can do with the crazy technological stuff going on nowadays that we can, to help ourselves. And he said, and it's just this simple, more sleep, better sleep, more exercise, and unplug. And getting back to nature. And it sounds so hokey, right? Oh, getting back to nature. But the idea of grounding yourself and all that stuff, it came from somewhere.
Sure.
These ancient philosophies from the East have lasted millennia. Right. And they'll be here after all this technology becomes obsolete next year. And then the year after, and then the year after. We're the planned obsolescence in technology is evident, right? These ancient philosophies have been there forever. I mean, we can look back as far as the Epic of Gilgamesh talking about this type of stuff.
Sure.
It was there.
Right.
So
another on that, we always talk about mind setting, and I'm interested when I hear people in martial arts and the tactical realm talk about this kind of new approach to mind setting. But I'm like, have you read the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto 1,600 years ago? The mind setting is there, and humans are no smarter than we were 5,000 years ago, but we have more information. And what do we do with that information? Yeah, a couple of things I learned from you in the gym that I started to kind of apply more broadly. Two things I really liked. Before I started training with you and learning how to lift better, I did sets, and you're like, you're gonna do reps. The rep matters, that's just contained inside of the set. So I really started to shift my focus to the reps. One area I move that toward is, okay, like say I'm dealing with anxiety, right? So I need to focus not all day. I need to focus for the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes. And that's my rep. I'm doing a rep of anxiety focus.
Makes sense.
And that's how I shift that over. The other big concept is the idea of progressive overload. Like you said, 1% better, right? Progressive overload tells us, I can't just jump 100 pounds on this movement. I got to jump a pound, 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. And if I can make those small incremental changes every day, then that really adds up. At the end of the year, you're significantly different in your mindset. So progressive overload and focusing on the rep and finding a way to make my focus a rep, rather than make it, oh, man, I got to stay on all day because I can't.
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, for sure. So those were two big shifts for me that I was able to kind of take and apply more broadly. When you're thinking about that, in terms of, because you've got a business, you've got a job, you've got all of these extracurricular activities you can engage in that are all good for you. So when you're thinking about reps, how do you decide where you're going to spend or put your focus on the reps?
For me right now, I don't have any immediate outlooks of I have to accomplish this over this period of time. So the way I find that I focus the best is if I'm doing what I want to be doing, especially the training and even the learning stuff. It's extracurricular, like you said.
Sure.
So if I treat it like, oh, I have to accomplish this, I'm less likely to accomplish it because my mind might be somewhere else, even though I want to focus so hard, right? My ability to focus on that is diminished because either I'm tired, I want to be doing something else, or I'm just not in it wholly. So I think that, and I did this stupid, it was ridiculous, and I don't even want to mention it. I did this little side article for an online forum when I was a little bit younger, and they asked questions, and then I'm supposed to answer it in a training capacity. And they asked, how do you build success? And I said, well, in this kind of partitioned area, you're pretty lucky because this isn't a necessity, right? This isn't, I have to make money success. This is, I want to be better. I want to compete. I want to do something with this, right? This isn't my physiological safety needs. This is an extracurricular. So I named it the Happy, Healthy Aesthetics Outlook. And what I mean by that is when someone goes in, right? So and I'm going to say this is probably 95 to 98% of people that go into a gym. It's, I want to look better.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, great. We all do. But the reason that the people that you see in there are the best looking, the best success, and the best overall, athletically or physiologically speaking, is because of consistency, right? All the raw talent in the world is not going to make the best martial artist, right?
Sadly,
it's
no.
years and years and decades of training, understanding, and application, so that way you don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
Well, the only way you're going to do that is by doing it all the time, not necessarily every day, but every day, training that focus. So my explanation for that was, if you take it and look at it okay, I'm going to go work out because I want to look better, and then hopefully my health gets better, and then hopefully I like doing it, you're probably not going to go in there with the best recipe for success. But if you find something that you like to do, and I don't care what it is, right? You like to golf, you like pickleball, or even catch up, what do they call it? Catch basketball or whatever, I don't know what you call it, the pickup game basketball. Do it.
Find something you like.
Find yourself and do it.
Yeah.
Do it 3 days a week at the minimum. And I guarantee those other components are going to come because we just have this innate competitive portion of our brain that we can't turn off. And I don't care who you are. You can be the geekiest person in the world. You're going to be the best gamer in life because you like it. So you find something, you stick to it. I guarantee what you're going to do is start building better supporting habits.
You know it.
Right? You're going to eat more. You're going to eat healthier. You're going to drink your water. You're going to get your sleep because you realize when you do these things, you're better at basketball. And then, oh my God, 3 months later, hey man, have you lost weight?
Yeah.
You look spectacular. Your face is skinnier. Oh my God, you have abs now? And you don't have to do this linear approach to it. I'm a huge fan of quantum physics. And the way that it applies to everything now, right? That biology book I was telling you about from Dr. Lipton was talking about how, like, on the basic biology level, they always looked at things in a linear format.
Right.
But when he finally got into the time of like, okay, I'm going to actually look at theoretical physics and understand what quantum physics are, he's realizing that A doesn't just affect B, that affects C, that affects D. A is affecting B, C, and D simultaneously in all directions at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? So if we're taking an approach that we're trying to make sure that we inhibit reaction in different sectors of our life, the one thing that you like doing are going to make all these other things better simultaneously.
And that's so good, man. Because I'll have people ask me all the time because they know I train. What's the best way to train? Should I? And people will say CrossFit is better, lifting is better, this thing is better. So they ask me what's the best way? I'm like, the thing you'll do
Yes.
is the best way.
Yes.
Volleyball, sure, basketball, sure. The thing that you will do is the best way to train.
Absolutely.
And the same with like in firearms training, get out on the range. I run structure drills. I do this thing, I do that thing. And people say, what is the best way to train? What's the best gun to carry? The one you'll train with, right? Ultimately, it's what training will you do? What will you train with? And that's what's going to capitalize for it.
I think that, like, when you in the gym setting, people are like, oh, what, how do you do this? Or what routine do you think? I go, you remember when magazines were a thing?
Oh, yeah.
I had a stack of Muscle and Fitness.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Muscular Development that was as tall as me.
Yep.
And I had all of them. And I told you, I can tell you one time I put all of them on my floor. And I had a notepad. And I wanted to see how many overlapping ideas there were as far as training blocks,
Yep.
lengths, intensities, reps, volume. And maybe 100 magazine, there might have been 3 or 4 overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
And these are across the best bodybuilders
Right.
in the world. And I thought to myself, oh, it doesn't matter whose routine you're doing. You need to find out how to do your routine.
Right.
So I would take one and I'd run it for a month. And I'd take another one. And I'm like, okay, I go back and I'd cross off what I didn't like about it. And then I would take it. And I mean, I'm just stealing the, Bruce Lee, take what what works for you and disregard the other stuff.
Yeah.
But those classic sayings are there for a reason.
Sure.
Because they're right. They're applicable. And you're not going to learn from, and I'm such a snob now, right? Because I see people training in the gym and they're doing like these alternative moves.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
What are you doing?
yeah. And it's usually moves in fads, right?
Yeah.
For the longest time, like when you were watching women, especially, they would squat and at the top of their squat, they'd pull their glutes in. And I'm like, And one woman watched my facial expression one day and she got upset. She goes, what's wrong with that? I said, physics.
Yeah.
Physics are wrong with that. I said, I'm not trying to be a jerk about this, but when you come up to a position, you're fully stacked. The only way that you can contract a muscle is by releasing a joint stability. So when you do that at the top, all you're doing is weakening your spinal column.
You are. Yeah.
That's not good. Not to mention, physics says that you're not going to contract your glutes anywhere with any kind of resistance because gravity works this way, not this way. And she's like, oh, well, I just feel it. I said, well, then you should continue to do it. I'm sorry. I will monitor my facial expressions better. Yeah. But if you have lower back issues in the next couple of weeks, just remember we had this conversation.
I felt that in my lower back when you said it. Like I was like, oh man, no, not like that. And one of the things that, since we touched on Bruce Lee, that Bruce said that really clicked with me. He said, Kung Fu is not a process of daily increase. It's a process of daily decrease. Chip away at what's useless, keep what is useful. And I think that's what we do, right? Because I've read those same magazines, loved them. And Lee Priest says to do this, and Lee Labrada says to do this, and Haney says to do this, Flex Wheeler says do this. And they're not wrong.
Right. They're all monsters. They're all in amazing shape, but none of them look the same.
Right.
Or they're, at least their approaches.
They've gotten there in different ways.
Right.
So what that told me over the years is there are different ways, to achieve what you want to achieve. And it's not that there's a way or the way, but there's a way,
right.
To get there. So I love that you're touching on that because I think there are just so many different ways to train to get where you want to go, What do we think about gym time? So one of the things I'll notice is that people think they need to be obsessive about their gym time. Like, how many hours a day do I need to spend in the gym? When I'm in the gym, typically an hour and 15 minutes, somewhere around there. Do you feel like it's time? Is it quality? Like, what do you think about like time and training?
Oh, quality is going to trump anything. A great 20-minute delt workout is going to be better than a moderate 20 or 2-hour workout. It's definitely about quality, right? Your ability to initiate as many muscle fibers in every single contraction that you can to make sure that rep 1 and rep 100 look exactly the same within a body part movement or a set, and making sure that you're supplementing those muscles with recovery, oxygen, and then obviously your hydration at the same time, and whether or not you have a carb powder or something in there. I'm going to say, if I had to give a cookie cutter, like, oh, this is how long you should be in there. If you're all natural, 45 minutes to an hour at the most. That's for bodybuilding.
Right.
Now, right now, I I try to go back into the bodybuilding, and I'm just so bored by it.
Sure.
21 years, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, this is just cookie cutter. So I've kind of developed my own outlook on it. Like, okay, now because I'm concerned solely with how do I get better, I'm like, all right, well, how do I take this activity that I love so much and make myself more prepared in the rest of my life? As I get older, I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do? Well, I'm worried about self-defense. So I want movements that are going to make me faster, stronger, and sharper. Well, I have my own landscaping business. What if this falls on me? Can I move from this position? Can I get out of awkward positions? Can I move asymmetrically? Because bodybuilding isn't that, right? Everything is linear. We move in one direction, one plane. We don't move bilaterally. So now I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to do that. You know, you have these 300-pound bodybuilders who probably can barely get off the couch. All right, well, now I want mobility. How do I get, standing or laying the ground to standing transfer? Oh, wait, now there's weights in my hand. How do I move in this position, right? So I'm trying to take this activity that I love so much and teach myself how to be better in alternated situations that I could confront as a human being every day. And, when I first started, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get smaller, this, that, and the third, which I did, right? Cell volumization's an issue.
Sure.
If you're not putting a large amount of nutrients, including blood and oxygen, into the muscle all the time, it's gonna look deflated, right? But literally, if I go do one leg routine of bodybuilding stuff, I'll come back and my legs will be twice the size as they were. So it's like,
Come back up, right?
I got it, But within that mindset now that I have, I can't just go perform those bodybuilding, like, here's 12 reps of side laterals, like the redundancy of it is what is like a cage to me now. I need to break out. So within the whole idea of finding something that you like, even if you are somebody who's like, I'm going to be a gym rat for the rest of my life and it doesn't matter, nobody can tell me different, you're probably right. And that's going to be me. My wife laughs and I said, but the day I can't crawl in there, give me a gun and walk away, because I can't, that's a joke, obviously.
Well, I think there's a saying I heard recently that clicked with me. Is that I'd rather be the oldest guy in the gym than the youngest guy in the old folks home. And I had a surgeon tell me, and I was kind of beating myself up a little bit. My 2024 was fucking nuts. I had the hip replacement and the nerve injury and all that shit. But one of my surgeons said, look, man, either you're going to sit around and do nothing and your body's going to rust out, or you're going to do a bunch of cool shit and your body's going to wear out. But if you wear your body out, everything around it is stronger. Right. So for fixing this joint, everything around it is stronger. You recover faster. You have a better result from the surgery. And man, that hip replacement, like, it's better than it was. 2 weeks in, they're going, yeah, do whatever you want, man. You're cool. And
I don't think that people think about stuff like that. I got in a really bad car accident when I was younger, and my mom was a nurse, so she wasn't off put by the doctor, but the doctor just walked in and said, yeah, your son should have died. Thank God he was so as big and strong as he was.
Yeah.
Because he should not have either sustained this injury or recovered from it. And yeah, there's something to be said, right? When you have larger muscles, you have better support systems for things like tendons and joints.
Right.
Now, obviously, like you said, you're going to wear it down if you're doing too much, too heavy, too often.
That's the thing, right?
Right. But as you get older, that's part of learning. Like, oh, I can't do that anymore. Yep. Oh, that hurts me. Oh, that rep range bothers me. So, Darwinism doesn't actually say the strong survive. It says the people who are the best at adapting.
Adaptation. It's not strength. Yeah.
It's not.
I don't know where we got that. The strongest survives, but it's the most adaptable.
Pseudo learning. I don't know. It's something that was catchier probably, or someone said something one time.
Can you change when you need to? Right. Can you adapt? It's a thing. And so we've talked a lot about what's going on inside the gym, and you and I were discussing this earlier, but I work in the mental health field, and both guys, and I say guys because the majority of people I work with are men. I'm concerned with everybody. If anybody needs help, I'll help you, but that's just where my lived experience is, and it's the people I work with. But both guys that I work with professionally and friends are going, look, man, I'm just, I feel good when I'm in the gym, but when I get out of it, if I don't unplug from all the shit going on in the world, like it just drags me down. You know, it's like the war in Iran, somebody tried to kill the president again. So, you know, this politician says that thing or that thing. And they're finding that they're just needing to kind of unplug from all that. And I wonder, you know, you've done some really interesting reading. We have some interesting conversations. Do you feel like you need to unplug? And if you do, how do you do it?
I don't do it enough, but I don't allow myself to take information in that's going to harm me. There's this awesome guy. His name is Chase Hughes. He has a YouTube channel. He has, I think he's written like 6 books. I have 2 of his. It's called the 6-Minute X-Ray and the Ellipsis Report. And he's a expert neuroscientist, I guess you would call it, neuropsychologist. And he built something called the NCI. And the NCI is a grading system to help you understand if something is a psyop. If you turn on cable TV, 9% of stuff you watch is a psyop.
I just can't do it anymore.
Am I going to say like, oh, well, because I only watch Chase Hughes? No, he has an agenda. Everything has an agenda.
Yeah.
But if I put myself in a position to understand what this person's agenda is and whether or not I'm capable of discerning the good information and the bad information, listen, right now, unless you're going to live under a rock off the grid, you know, I'm like your David Koresh style.
Right.
It's going to be difficult.
Some of the
So
hate you.
I am... My wife gets mad because we'll talk about all these horrible things going on. Well, you know, and it's not, she's very intelligent. She, you know, but she'll make a comment like, well, they said this, they did that. And I said, right, but there's something called personal agency, right? And agency is a grading factor that they use to like figure out who the best of the best of the best is going to be. I don't know if an easy way that I understand agency is somebody with low agency says, there's a pothole, somebody should do something about that. Someone with some agency goes, there's a pothole, I'm going to call my political leader and tell them about it.
Yeah.
Somebody with a high agency goes, I got some rock and I got some quick patch, here we go.
I'm going to fix that.
That's me. If I'm going to complain about something, which sometimes I do, and I catch myself and I go, fuck.
Yeah.
Like I chastise myself about it. If I have a complaint, I need to understand truly what's going on, who the players are, what I think can be done, and what am I doing personally to fix it. Now, obviously on a global scale, we can't do much. But to me, having an understanding, self-education, and my biggest gripe right now is with technology. Not the technology, with we, the people, using it incorrectly. We have at our fingertips a supercomputer.
Oh, yeah.
The things that you thought when you were a kid, right? Oh, I have to go learn about this. I got to learn about Lincoln. You come home with your 17 fucking books, right?
Your encyclopedia.
Now you're like, oh, I want to learn about Lincoln. Right? So what are you using this stuff for?
Sure.
If you're on your cell phone using it for fucking Pornhub to jerk off, you're a jerk off.
Yeah.
Right? If you're like, oh, every time someone says something, I'm going to look that up.
Right.
Well, this politician said this. Well, hey, ChatGPT, does so-and-so take money from APAC? Stuff like that. I look at that stuff constantly because if you're not fully aware of what information you're taking in, either you're susceptible to being led or you're willing to be led. I am not a sheep.
Right.
I don't like being a follower. So I'm not saying that everyone has to go out there and revolutionize change.
Sure.
But doing my small part of having an understanding of what information I'm taking in and being able to discern what I can use and what I can't use, I do limit myself. I don't watch any cable TV. I stopped listening to music.
Really?
I did. That's my issue. I definitely think I have some ADD, and I'll do this thing when I start reading, and I'll start listening, and I'll hear a loop of music. It's actually called the Zeigarnik effect.
Okay.
The Zeigarnik effect says that we're more likely to remember unfinished tasks more than finished tasks because our brain is always searching for complete something.
Wow.
So I stopped listening to music because if I don't, 3 weeks later, I won't do that while I'm reading anymore. I started using a lot of binaural sounds. You know a lot about that?
Oh, man, so many people I know are benefiting from that right now.
I love it. I have this app called Moongate. When I'm reading, I had the 40 hertz stuff on. Some of it I urge caution with, because some of the research out there is contradictive to what some of these things offer you. So like, you know, a lot of these apps are like, oh, the 0 to 3 hertz is good for, or megahertz is good for calming. Really? Because everything under 20 megahertz is considered infrasound, which is getting close to the resonancy frequency of our person, which is 7 hertz.
Correct.
So it's like, isn't that kind of going to create anxiety and stuff like that? And it does in me. So just, I'd say be careful with it. But once again, having the agency to be like, oh, Brandon and Zach said this is good, I'm going to just do it. No, don't fucking do it. Don't listen to me. I want you to think more for you, not about what I have to say. Everything that I do and say and the things that I put out there, I never tell people how I think they should think.
Mm-hmm.
Because the number one thing, and it doesn't matter what walk of life, whether it's politicians, corporate elites, bodybuilders, I fucking hate hypocrites. Don't be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with that. Once, like, if I find myself doing that, I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I write it down. Don't ever do this again because you do this. Yeah, I know that was a long-winded version of what you're asking me, but
it's a good answer, and it's a couple takeaways I have there. It reminded me of a lyric from one of my favorite songs, and that is the algorithm's making sure your eyes don't see. Right? So we kind of think the algorithm feeds us these things, gives us these things to see, but
we feed into that.
It's so narrow, you know, and it really dials into your biases. So it's making sure you don't see all the other stuff. One of the ways I try to combine that, because I'm like a TikTok man, I like TikTok will pull me in. When I find somebody who's saying something I like, I go, okay, that's hitting one of my biases. That's bias confirmation.
Yep.
You know, so it feels good to me. I like it, right? So now what do I do?
Go find something you
To
don't
counter
like.
that, go find something I don't like.
Yep.
I say, who disagrees with this guy? Who's trying to debunk this guy? And then I try to get the algorithm to feed me multiple points of view. I don't know if it is effective, but I do seem to have a good mix of contradicting opinions
Yep.
that are being fed to me right now. So I'm not sure how much I can train the algorithm, but it's there.
I find the social media, like, I don't know, I can't do it. I turned my Facebook back on maybe like 8 months ago because I was like, all right, I'm going to promote the business.
Yeah.
I'm going to see what my friends are doing. I kept my Facebook, but I deleted the app off my phone. And Holly's like, I sent like 5 videos for you to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
What about the cat videos?
Like, you need to text those to me because I turned it off. She's like, already? I'm like, yeah, I just can't do it. I said, it's not even like the original Facebook. The original Facebook was like, ooh, what's Brandon doing? Oh, what's Chris doing?
Right.
It's like, what's Brandon doing? Add. What's Chris doing? Add. And I'm like, I don't want to see this stuff. Like, I'm trying to see what my friends are doing. So I'm like, I'm just going to text fucking Brandon instead because I don't have the capacity to do that. And being someone who is in tune with like psyops and the push from big government, big corporations, all that media, I don't have it in me. It makes me angry, and I don't need any more reason to be angry, especially with the current political and geopolitical and economic situations that we have to take on a daily basis. Your leisure activity shouldn't add to that. So, yeah, I guess in that sense, I do unplug. I don't have any of that, and like I said, the doing little things like the walking thing. When I go outside to take my 10-minute walks, it's no music. No, not even any sunglasses, right? It's eyes wide open. How much sunlight can I get in there? I want to make sure that I'm trying to get my circadian rhythm in place because I do work shift hours from the railroad. So, okay. And during the day, you're supposed to have sun exposure. At night, you're supposed to see only dark, right? So how do I keep my body in a better circadian rhythm? I'll take those times to do breathing exercises while something I learned from you, right? And I'll practice that. Like, okay, I forget to do it when I'm in the gym, when I'm out of breath. No, shit. Brandon said hard in the nose, slow in the nose, hard out the mouth. So I'll practice those types of things. I'll think about the sounds that I'm hearing. I'll drown out all the crazy stuff. Like, I want to hear the birds, right? And the wind blowing and what's the leaves sound like? Oh, it must be getting closer to fall because the leaves are crunchy, I know that sounds kind of hokey, and especially for younger people, but as you get older, you realize it's all one thing. Yeah. And I'm definitely, not to get religious, but like, I'm big into the idea of Gaia. And Gaia says everything is just one.
Sure.
Right? Everything that we know on this earth, everything that we know in our consciousness, and everything that we experience is all one thing. And I'm like, Oh my God, that's so profound. Like,
Speaking of quantum physics, all one thing. And another thing you touched on that I like, and with some of the stuff we're talking about, a friend of mine is a salty Marine. He's about 10 years older than I am, and just kind of a salty cat. He's like, we're talking about this. He's like, it sounds like hippie shit. I'm like, man, if it's a good idea, I don't care where it came from. And something you said was, the old saying was, think globally, act locally. And that got tied to a lot of, causes, so to speak. But I think that's a great way to unplug, because I can't affect what's going on globally. Even in the work I do, let's say the number is accurate. I think it's not, but say 22 veterans a day die by suicide. I can't save 22 a day,
right.
but I can do today for one what I wish I could do for everybody, you know? And if I think, act locally, act with this one, I can start to have an impact, and I can kind of unplug myself from the bigger mission that I just don't have the ability to impact, but I can do it one at a time.
Yeah.
And then I build a team. And now the team is doing one more, and the team is doing one more. And that acting locally really does change, really does change kind of where your focus is. And I think I told a buddy of mine, he's like, all this shit on the internet, and on social media. I'm like, you got to get off social media.
100%.
I like social media, but I recognize what it can do to a person quick.
Use it as a tool.
Yes. And, it just magnifies the worst. You can do a lot of good with social media, but it has a tendency to magnify the worst. I'm like, get out. I work with people from all walks of life, man, and what makes us click, we're different politically, we're different religiously, culturally. We have the same mission. We want to get out there and save lives.
Right.
And if we've all got the same mission, then we can set aside all the other shit,
100%.
and just get on start rowing the same direction, start pulling toward the same thing. And I think that act locally concept is that, it's talk to your neighbors, even if you don't agree with your neighbors
Right.
and everything. Talk to your neighbors and see what you can actually do. And I think that's where we start to make changes.
I think that fundamentally now, with the way that there's such a capability to take us and section us off, that we don't think this country was meant to be a melting pot,
Sure.
right? This was a cultural center this is the new cultural center of the universe, right? This is the place where anybody can come and we can all come together and try to be the best society that we can. I mean, we do very well economically, right? We do very well militaristically. Unfortunately, when you put too many emphasis on certain components, you let those other parts go.
Sure.
And we stop thinking in a broad spectrum and start thinking in a very, linear, small spectrum. And not in a good way, right? We wanted to think locally about how to better, not how do we improve necessarily. Because you can improve a lot of bad things, right? You can make more evil people. You
Sure
can make
can.
more things to kill other people.
Can be done.
But if I said to myself, how do I better these people? How do I better this military? It's not the same concept. So I definitely want to make sure that when I'm thinking about being better, is not how do I be better at making something more efficient, is how do I be better in a roundabout general purpose for all of people and all the people that are surrounding me.
And you said a good point earlier about the melting pot. And this is, the topic of diversity. You say diversity means such different things to different people, right? And I've got friends on the more right end of the spectrum who are rejecting the idea of diversity, and I've got friends on the left who go, "No, diversity is all that matters." I don't know if we're hitting it, because I think we become stronger through diversity when we discover what we have in common.
Right.
And we use that diversity to bolster what we have in common.
Right.
But I think if we're just focusing on the differences, inclusion alone can't get it done. Inclusion is great, but what do we have in common?
I find it really strange, and I don't know if this is the only country, but it's the one that I realize the most. So, like, say you have somebody that moves here from India, and they're 2 generations in, and they go, "Oh, I'm Indian American."
Yeah.
And somebody who's been here for 3 generations, "Oh, I'm Filipino American." If you go to any other country, they just go, "I'm American."
Yeah.
But in this country, it's the only place where we have to put some box around who we are as individuals. Now, I don't know if that's a psychological, I have to be more unique type thing. But to me, that's how we get separated, when we think to ourselves, how am I different than everyone else, other than how can I find common ground with you,
Yes.
right? So,
and man, I love those differences. The music, the food, the culture,
right.
the different ways of thinking. I love all those things. But if we don't have a way of putting us all on the same page with those differences, I think it starts to work against us. And a friend of mine even said, diversity collapsed Rome. They got too diverse. maybe not.
Okay, well,
But,
the financial structure, the border
oh,
stuff,
gosh.
right? It's not the same thing.
Big picture,
And
right? Yeah.
before that happened, Rome flourished for hundreds of
Hundreds
years,
of years.
right? They were the most prolific imperialistic nation in history.
Yeah.
They were the most culturally diverse. They were the most religiously diverse. You know, we think about like, oh, well, we only talk about the persecutions under Diocletian. Right. First of all, those persecutions only lasted for 8 years.
Right. And Rome was 500?
Yeah, well, pretty much everything. I mean, shit.
If it even collapsed.
Alexander died in 325, and then the collapse of Rome was until 1057.
Yeah.
The collapse of the Byzantine Empire was until 1057. Right. Within that time frame, how much did they accomplish, right? The amount of enlightened thinking,
Huge.
the different religious centers that moved through there, the different philosophical ideologies that came through there. They were more than willing to accept all cultures. And the coolest thing about them was like the religious center wasn't religious. It was spiritual. And when I say that, like the Greeks would adopt other religions' gods, right? So they would bring this idea, oh, well, you really like that. And they would put that into their line of thinking. Yes. And when, come back to like the persecution parts of it, I'm not being anti-Christian or anything, but when that happened, they were sacking temples in Greece. They were refusing to do things, and Greeks viewed things on a political scale, right? So the reason that Diocletian did what he did was because they had certain times, and when they were in hardships, they fell back to some of their Greek ideologies, like, sacrificing to gods. It wasn't sacrifice to these gods because I want you to have faith. It was sacrifice to these gods because this is what's better for our people. We're starving. It's a drought. There's famine. That's not what religion is anymore. Religion's lost its spirituality and become a business and identity. I have an issue with all that stuff. I'm sure we can do some other ones if you wanted about that type of stuff.
We absolutely will. We're going to start wrapping up, but it's such an interesting conversation, man. I could just let this go. So we're just going to have to do it again and kind of pick up from there. I'll just wrap up with kind of my thoughts from this conversation is that mental health, spiritual health, physical health are one thing.
All of it.
And we need to know how to make that work. Diversity is great. Diversity with commonality gives us power.
Yep.
So we can combine those things. And a friend of mine jokingly asked around some time ago, she's like, how many times a week do you think a guy thinks about the Roman Empire? I'm like, oh, a lot.
Hopefully every single
day. Like that pops into my head a lot, from Marcus Aurelius to, the structure of Rome. And people say, but Rome collapsed. Did it, or did it evolve? And, by the way, if that happened, they were around certainly twice as long as as we have been. So
the funny thing is, Rome went through several collapses. We just don't talk about it,
right? And then evolutions, right? Adaptability to change. The Holy Roman Empire later, the Byzantine Empire before that. Just all those things. So we could evolve, we could change, we could adapt, and we don't have to look the same. And that's okay. I'm not the man I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and thank God. Zach, it's been a really interesting conversation. We're going to do this again so we can kind of carry that on. But it's been pretty badass. Guys, I want you all to remember, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. So we got to talk about it. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, for that one. Thank you, brother.